Cage Nation. Welcome to the Cage Nation. Welcome to the Cage Nation. No one can drop us, no one can stop us. We are the warriors, no one can top us, no one can rock us. We are the warriors, no one can drop us, no one can stop us. We are the warriors, no one can top us, no one can rock us. We are the warriors.
Well, 6 years is a long time to be middleweight champion, but you know, in our sport, champions are crowned, champions are dethroned, new champions are crowned. Speaking of crowning champions, the main event of Gladiators of the Cage, North Shore Rise to Power 2, is Chris Dempsey versus Louis Rumsey for the middleweight crown for Gladiators of the Cage. I'm Albert, I'm your elected official, Albert Cameron. Beside me, as always, is my running mate, Drew Shannon. How you doing, Drew?
We are like the Wayne's World of MMA, except we don't have mullets,
No.
and we don't have extreme close-up, and we're not as cool. But we do have MMA.
We got MMA.
And this is the second half, I guess you would say, or the first half, depending on which half you watched first, of this week's edition of Cage Nation TV.
It really depends on your geographical location. If you're from Pittsburgh, this is your first one.
Yeah, if you want. Okay, whatever. Technically, we're calling this episode 7B, and this episode is going to deal with the Gladiators of the Cage event in Pittsburgh, PA, Stage AE, which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to hitting the Burgh. I haven't been to Pittsburgh in, I think, around a year.
The Steel City, baby.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, Gotham City, baby. I cannot wait, and it is going to be one hell of a great night. Gladiators of the Cage, July 20th. At Stage AE. Get your tickets now for this great night of fights. What more can we say?
We can say we're going to go to the newsreel, and then we're going to cut to the chase. We're going to tell you about all some of the highlight fights that you're going to see at Gladiators of the Cage, North Shore Rise to Power 2.
Stick around. It's Cage Nation TV. Hopefully, the thunderstorm won't knock out our power.
It's time for another edition of Cage Nation TV Newsreel, spanning the globe to bring you the latest news in MMA.
Well, we bet you didn't see this coming. A $1 million bet that was placed on newly crowned UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman is being investigated by police and the Gambling Control Board. The gambler's identity has not been revealed, but authorities became suspicious at the amount of the bet placed. Going into the fight, Weidman was the underdog according to bookmakers, and so the $1 million bet would have a payout of $3.2 million. No formal charges or arrests have been made. Speaking of that historic fight between former UFC middleweight champion Anderson the Spider Silva and newly crowned middleweight king Chris Weidman, Ariel Helwani of MMAfighting.com broke the news earlier this week that UFC middleweight Anderson Silva has done a 180 since Saturday night, and by Sunday night not only wanted the rematch with Chris Weidman, but wants to fight him before the end of the year. Weidman stated on Monday that he has a few nagging injuries to take care of, and February 1st of next year would be a perfect time to do the rematch for the Super Bowl weekend show in Newark, New Jersey. If the UFC could put together Weidman versus Silva and Ronda Rousey versus Aisha Tate for that year-end show, you're talking monster numbers for that show, and the first show since 2009 that could come close to the all-time record of 1.6 million buys for UFC 100. However, as of this taping, the February fight date looks a little more plausible than the December fight date. UFC President Dana White spoke with a reporter of the LA Times on Monday and stated he was considering putting together the rematch between Weidman and Silva for the year-end show on December 28th and bumping Rousey versus Tate to the February 1st show in Newark. But according to reports, that is not happening, and Rousey versus Tate is still scheduled for December 28th, coming off The Ultimate Fighter 18. We'll keep you posted if anything changes. The crippler Chris Lieben has been granted an exemption to Suboxone, a substance typically used to treat addiction to painkillers. The 32-year-old UFC middleweight has been fighting addiction and trying to get his life back on track. The road to recovery has included 2 major gym moves and a stint in jail. Lieben's latest bout was against Andrew Craig at UFC 162. We wish Chris Lieben good luck and success in his effort to get cleaned up.
Welcome back to Cage Nation TV. This is our special countdown episode to Gladiators of the Cage, The North Shore's Rise to Power 2.
PA is becoming this epicenter of great mixed martial arts.
It is.
It's the reason why the UFC was in Philly, why Bellator keeps coming to Reading and Allentown. They haven't come into the State College Altoona Johnson area, and they haven't really come into Pittsburgh because we already got some really heavy competition there, namely some of the guys who were fighting on the North Shore Rise Power 2 card. Now, if you're from the Pittsburgh area and you're watching Cage Nation TV, thank you. We appreciate you watching. We're going to be talking about guys that we know, guys we're familiar with in our area, guys who are hopefully going to bring people with us to Pittsburgh so that we can get them, so you can get them familiar with you.
Yes. So, what he's trying to say is, our guys will come to your town to see your guys and our guys. You will see our guys. We will see your guys. Everyone will become familiar with everyone, and
Stronger community.
exactly. And isn't that what life is all about?
That sound like hippie talk.
Yeah.
Let's talk about fights.
What it's about is watching guys kick each other's ass. That's
Right.
what it's about.
Exactly.
And you're going to have a lot of ass kicking coming up at Gladiators of the Cage in Pittsburgh, Stage AE. Get your tickets now, July 20th. It's going to be an excellent fight card. In all seriousness,
Yeah.
I can't wait, and I can't wait to see the guys from Pittsburgh. And yes, those fighters that we are talking about, fighter XYZ from Pittsburgh, even though we are talking about our local guys, I'll tell you what, I got a funny feeling we'll be talking about fighters XYZ coming up in our recap episode, which will be next week. So tune in and just learn about fighters XYZ.
We can't wait to introduce ourselves to you, and we can't wait to meet your guys.
All right, so are we ready to take a look at the undercard here?
Who do you got, Drew?
I've got O.J. Vickers versus Clark Young. Now, heavyweight fights are rare in our area. Vickers is a KOTC and NAAFS veteran.
Right. The main event of Gladiators of the Cage is a middleweight fight.
Right.
And a lot of guys we see fighting pro and amateur, they're a lot of the smaller. So middleweight's like, oh man, these guys are kind of heavy for the card. We're talking guys who are heavier than 206 pounds right now. And did you know that Clark Young almost killed me?
I believe I remember that. You were a cameraman.
Yes.
Was standing up in the eagle's nest, I guess you would.
Tree stand.
Tree stand.
Tree stand.
Yes.
And it was Clark Young versus Adam Smith Urbany. And not only did they almost knock me off the rigging, but they actually brought Clark Young was throwing people around so bad that a lighting rig actually came down.
Yeah.
Now, Clark Young is an incredibly nice guy. He's a farm boy. And you know how those farm boys are. They're just naturally strong. They're naturally powerful.
Right.
But O.J. Vickers, King of the Cage, at a time when I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard of the King of the Cage. If you haven't, you really should. King of the Cage was almost like the farm league to the UFC before Strikeforce, Bellator came around. So for someone to be a King of the Cage veteran, that really says that they're doing something right and they're really going places. So we have heavyweights, which we rarely get to see, and now we got someone with the King of the Cage NAAFS pedigree that O.J. Vickers has, and we have Clark Young, who's fought in our area a lot. We got two bulls coming head-to-head on the Gladiators of the Cage undercard.
It's going to be an explosive fight.
Clark Young has a gas tank, which is typically not the case for heavyweights. They like to throw heavy bombs, but Clark Young can go to the end of the fight. He's also got ground game and submission, too. We saw him submit a guy with a Kimura lock. Now, admittedly, I haven't seen as much O.J. Vickers fight as I'd like to, but if the guy's in the King of the Cage, I mean, he's really bringing skill, and it's going to be a great fight.
That it is. Next fight, Zach Schultz versus David Keys. Now, Schultz was an incredible title fight. He was in an incredible title fight with Rich Catalina. Great display of Schultz's overall ability. And he has a good gas tank, but the ability to stop a fight as well.
When Zach Schultz was supposed to fight Lenny Karlheim. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the guys we're talking about, Lenny Karlheim is known as the King of the Altoona Amateurs, namely because we call him that.
Right.
Lenny Karlheim is no joke. So Zach Schultz was supposed to fight Lenny Karlheim. Lenny Karlheim got hurt, so the real American Rich Catalina came in, and it was for a featherweight title fight. That fight went to a decision, and I was holding my breath while I was watching the fight because I didn't know who was going to get the win. So we got Rich Catalina, who was a great striker, but we got Zach Schultz, who was an excellent mat tactician. So, not only do I think that Zach Schultz should get a rematch against Catalina, but I think whoever he's fighting going forward is in for a really tough scrap.
Well, it is going to be one heck of a fight. Jessica Richmond versus Jamie Chesney. It's the first female fight in Pittsburgh, in the Pittsburgh area. Richmond stopped Laura Burns with a first-round armbar in her first fight, and Chesney is making her amateur debut. What do you think?
Well, you know how I always say that whenever I get old, I want to be that guy wearing the fedora and the jacket and the cigar talking about the good old days of MMA?
I think you talked about the camera perspective in the other episode.
So after you're not watching that one, go watch this one.
Yeah.
Or this one, go watch that one.
You understand.
Pennsylvania is really carving out something as our niche in Pennsylvania, and that is we are bringing great women's MMA. And I've gone on rants before that why are we calling it women's MMA? We have great female competitors who are going out there and fight. We've seen Maggie O'Neill fight, Melanie Bremer, Courtney Kern, Elizabeth Gray. So now we have Jamie Chesney, and we have Jessica Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
One's from Philadelphia, one's from Pittsburgh. So we got the Steel City versus the City of Brotherly Love.
Oh, it's East versus West.
In a metropolitan area. So for you guys in Pittsburgh, like not only do these girls know how to fight, but you know it's your first opportunity to see women's MMA, and these ladies are training. They're training to make a name for themselves. Like
right.
they really are. Like I've seen bad women's MMA, and I mean it was on the borderline of like cutesy. Not in Pennsylvania. We don't do that here. Not in the Keystone State.
That's not how we play.
No. Our girls are the ladies are tough.
All right, Jason the Whip Willett is going to take on Mike Wilkins. And point blank, Willett stops fights. He has yet to win a fight by decision.
I'm talking to my folks in Altoona. You guys remember whenever Jason the Whip Willett fought Tyler the Country Boy Updike? Yeah, Jason Willett stops fights. Jason Willett was in Greensburg, Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago, and he's like, not only is he a great fighter fighting out of the Pittsburgh area, but he's also a very good coach and cornerman. So someone who can take knowledge of MMA and combat sports and pass it on to other people clearly has to have a lot of that knowledge in and of himself.
Well, he's also signed a 3-card deal with Gladiators of the Cage. That's right.
Yeah, and you know I can't believe we haven't said it until now, but this fight that we're talking about is going to be on Root Sports.
That's right.
Yeah. It's going to air sometime in August, I believe like August 5th around there, but this fight that you guys have an opportunity to go to, coming from our area, it's like not even 3 hours away, is going to be on TV. So like Gladiator of the Cage is obviously going places.
Now, it's not going to be live. It's going to be tape delayed. So set your DVRs. If you can't watch it when it does air, set your DVRs and be sure to check out this fight because from top to bottom thus far, it's going to be a pretty awesome bout.
Especially, well, Jason the Whip Willett is he's such a nice guy. Like, you know, you go up and talk to the guy. He's so nice. You know, he's a really down to earth kind of guy. As soon as that cage door shuts, he stops being a nice guy and he starts being the whip. And the whip cuts. The whip stops fights. When I think we're going to see a lot of him trying to stop the fight throughout the entire bout.
Now, Wilkins has fought the Keystone State's best fight scenes as well.
Oh, anywhere that you and I've been, and I think it's just a matter of, I'm sure we've talked to we talked to Wilkinson? Wilkins. We talked to Wilkins. We just haven't done it in front of camera. Wilkins. Yeah. That scriptwriter isn't such a bad guy after all.
No, he's not that bad.
I'm sure we've talked to Wilkins. We just haven't done it in front of camera because he's been like a step ahead of us. We've been to this fight. Well, he was at the event before. Wilkins has traveled all around the state, and he's got the chops too. There's a lot of matchmaking at work here, and these fights make sense.
That they do, and you can see them all live. July 20th. It's a Saturday. You've got no excuse to be like, oh, I can't go. I got to work the next day.
Absolutely not.
Bull.
Yeah.
Get down to Pittsburgh, Stage AE, July 20th for Gladiators of the Cage. It's going to be an incredible event, top to bottom.
I've said it before. I don't have time for folks who are like, I love watching UFC. I'd go to a UFC fight. Whenever you got great mixed martial arts action and the fighters of tomorrow who are practically in your backyard, it isn't going to take us no time at all to get down to Pittsburgh, and we're going to see incredible fights, and we want you guys there too. So
plus, it's a great scenic drive too.
Well, especially when you're in the car with Drewski and I.
Would you get to, when you get to Pittsburgh? Go grab a Permani Brothers sandwich. In fact, we got to do that when we're down there.
We should probably do that.
I'm thinking we're doing that.
All right.
You, me, Mike Kessling,
Jason
Davis, Permani Brothers, sandwiches, a whole lot of indigestion. It's going to be one hell of a road trip. That's all I can say. You guys make the road trip. July 20th, Pittsburgh, Stage AE, Gladiators of the Cage.
And then come up to us and tell us, hey, I watched Cage Nation TV about Gladiators of the Cage, and we will say thank you for watching. I'm going to dole out some hugs while I'm down there. Some bro hugs.
I'm a fist bumper.
Or that too. We don't have to make it. We don't have to make it weird. It doesn't have to be weird.
Yeah, shouldn't be weird.
No.
Not a hugger.
Okay.
Coming up, we've got the rundown of the main event. We'll take a look at the complete card here in just a few, and then we'll talk about the main event, and that is Dempsey versus Rumsey. You're watching Cage Nation TV, the special Gladiators of the Cage episode, July 20th, Stage AE, Pittsburgh. Be there.
It's said that there's no greater quality of a champion than the ability to last and endure the rigors of a fight. When Chris Dempsey steps foot in the Gladiators of the cage on July 20th, it would appear that he possesses that very quality. Dempsey has taken the likes of Dervin Lopez, Christopher Wing, and Chase Owens all the way to the end of the fight and secured the unanimous decision victory. Dempsey's fight against Louis Rumsey is the brass ring, the shot at glory, and what better way to go into a title fight than a title fight that's televised? July 20th, Chris Dempsey steps into the biggest fight of his young career. Williamsport, PA's very own Louis the Beast Rumsey is looking to tear through Gladiators of the Cage and right through Chris Dempsey. Rumsey is a Bellator veteran and familiar with the big fight with high stakes. The Beast has the makings of an exciting fighter to watch and a champion you can root for. One thing is very clear when you look at Rumsey's career. He has pure, unbridled stopping power. On Saturday, July 20th, the North Shore is rising to power for the second time. Could main eventer Louis the Beast Rumsey be leading the charge?
Well, I'm telling you what, from that perspective, this main event has got a lot of great implications to it.
You know, and I've said it a lot today and this week. July has been a great month for middleweights. For Chris Weidman, you know, a great month for middleweight. And then our main event is the middleweight showdown for the Gladiators of the Cage 185-pound title. Chris Dempsey versus Louis Rumsey. We got the up and comer, the shooting star, really, versus the Beast. You know, Louis the Beast Rumsey. There are times when fights come along and they align, where the fights make sense and you just get excited about them because someone's showing you the right information.
Right.
I want to make sure I'm clearly communicating to you guys how Dempsey versus Rumsey is going to be one of those fights. Dempsey just fights with heart. You know, Dempsey always fights with heart. Rumsey fights to take your head off. And you know, with Rumsey being a Bellator veteran, and we're seeing a lot of guys who are going to Bellator and they're doing great things, but they're also coming back to local fights. If a guy's good enough to fight in Bellator, he's clearly got it.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, there are times where I'll say to him, like, hey, I got so-and-so winning the fight. I can't do that with this one. You know, I really can't. I think Rumsey's got the animal instinct, but I think Dempsey's just got this. He's just got it, whatever it is. I think it's going to be a stellar fight, sanctioned by the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission, which has these fights in Pennsylvania yet to let me down.
Right. I don't think we've seen a bad fight yet.
No, not in Pennsylvania.
Not in Pennsylvania.
On DVD, sure,
Yeah.
but not from Pennsylvania.
All right. Well, that coming up, that is your main event, Dempsey versus Rumsey, the Gladiators of the Cage main event. Do not miss Gladiators of the Cage. If you can't be there live, you're going to have to wait for it on Root Sports in August. Don't wait for it, okay? Go see it live.
See it.
Get your tickets now. And
You might even have an opportunity to be on TV.
Exactly.
Root Sports is a great channel with a lot of great sports.
There you go.
And they're airing Gladiators of the Cage, so I mean, if they do like one of those pan shots of the crowd, you could be on TV.
you can see us on TV.
I want to be on TV with you.
I want to be on TV with you.
I'm totally on TV with you.
I want to be on TV with. Well, that's part of the course. We got to be on TV together. It's
We
our-
do.
it's
We're
our
packed
concept.
together. You can't get one of us.
Well, depends how hot you are, ladies. Anyway, right now it is time for the Cameron perspective to wrap things up on this special edition of Cage Nation TV, Episode 7B. My friend, take it away.
Thank you very much, Drew. There is nothing in mixed martial arts as exciting as a title fight, especially with an up-and-coming promotion like Gladiators of the Cage. Guys who are involved with TV networks like Root Sports, they don't go around to any MMA promotion saying, oh, hey, you've got a cage, oh, let's put you on TV. They don't do that. They look for quality. They look for excellence, and Gladiator of the Cage has got it. So, we got an event like Gladiators of the Cage that's going to end up on a prestigious TV network like Root Sports, and we're going to bring it all together. We're bringing the whole event to a head with a title fight. it is an honor that we're going to be there, just because we do enjoy local MMA so much. And we want to thank Gladiators of the Cage for saying, hey guys, come down, we'd love to have you there as well. Gladiators of the Cage is going places, and a lot of these other promotions are as well. So that's why it's important for you guys to take your hard-earned money and go watch quality fights, because you are not going to see fights like this on the UFC. The guys in the UFC have already proven themselves. Not saying they're not great fighters, but they've already proved themselves. We have guys right now who are fighting for livelihoods, and the guys who just have everything to prove. And those, my friends, are the exciting fights to watch. So the Cameron perspective for this week is, get involved, go see local MMA, support these guys so that whenever they hit the stratosphere, you know you were there helping them support it. And it's Gladiators of the Cage, so they got an exciting fight. That, my friends, is the Cameron perspective.
Local, regional fights, not just fights in your town, not just fights, you know, maybe outside of your town, but fights in another region, okay? We're talking about over in Pittsburgh, all right? We're coming from Center County, maybe even Blair County, all the way over to, what is the county?
Bucks County?
Bucks County?
I think.
Pittsburgh area, county. Whatever county Pittsburgh is in, that's where we're going.
Allegheny, I think it's Allegheny County, I don't know.
I don't know. I failed my PA, man, my PA history teacher, Mr. Curtin, is going to be so upset if he sees this. Anyway, do not miss Gladiators of the Cage. It is going to be awesome, July 20th, and it is at Stage AE, and you will have one hell of a great time. Great fights, top to bottom. Don't miss it.
If you go to CageNationTV.com, we're actually going to have the posters for the event. Gladiators of the Cage actually sent us all the posters, which were very nicely done. But it's going to give you like a side-by-side visual of everyone who's fighting. So go to CageNationTV.com right now. Check those out. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Shoot us an email at CageNationTV@gmail.com. And if you have a fight that you think is going to be awesome coming up, or you got a fighter we should know about, get on CageNationTV.com. Shoot us an email. We'd love to see them.
Next week, we will have the recap of Gladiators of the Cage in Pittsburgh. We will also have an interview with a very special guest, a UFC. In fact, his name is...
You know what my favorite movie is?
What?
That one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and they're in the woods, and they gotta try to hide from that thing. What's it called?
Total Recall?
No, not that one.
Oh,
But if you think of that movie, it's a really good movie. But anyway, UFC legend.
Commando?
No. You guys think about it. We'll see you next week.
Terminator?
No.
Oh!